Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Bible Study Minute. Today we're taking a look at 1 Corinthians chapters 3 and 4. And in these chapters, what we see is Paul is dealing with the Corinthian church's immaturity and their pride and arrogance. And so he addresses these things in this chapter. And he does so by first addressing their immaturity and talking about how he has dealt with them as babies in Christ because they are living worldly, and how he wants them to be more mature as believers. And then he goes on to talk about their arrogance and pride. And he talks about like the division that was had between them with Paul and Apollos, and just breaking it down, saying that they're just servants of Christ that are being used by God, and the foundation that everything is being built upon is Jesus Christ. And then he talks about how really they're just managers of what God has given them. And then he talks about the example of the apostles, because these Corinthian believers wanted to think that they were wiser and superior than others. And he's just given the example of the apostles, like, these people are being beaten, they're working hard, and they don't have any of the glory that you guys are proclaiming for yourselves. And he's just making them very aware of that this is the example that's being set and the standard that's being set as a believer. But in the midst of all this, kind of smack dab in the middle of these chapters, is verses 16 and 17 of chapter 3, where Paul talks about how believers are the temple of God and how God's Spirit dwells in us. And this is what I kind of want us to focus on today as we take a look at this passage. And the emphasis is really that if God does call us his temple and his Spirit does reside in us, which is true for believers, then that should inform how we think and how we act. Because we have to remember that God is with us, he's omnipresent. And as a result of that, then that should influence how we think and how we do things and how we live our lives, and just knowing that God is always with us, and we need to be able to live our lives in such a way that we are walking worthy of being God's temple. And that means even how we care for our bodies. So that's what I want to leave you with today as you take a look at this passage, is look at their immaturity, their pride and arrogance, and how Paul addresses and corrects that. And then just look at how he calls all believers out as God's temple, and how that has an impact and influence on your life. So until next time, grace and peace.